Navigating Betrayal webinar, podcast, and YouTube channel. I'm your host, KayLee Dunn, betrayal navigation coach, betrayal trauma therapist for over a decade, and admin of this free Facebook group, Humans Navigating Betrayal. Today, I would like to introduce you, although most of you probably already know here in the group, Vanessa Cardenas. She is a moderator of this group and an incredibly valuable part of keeping this group together. But we're going to talk today about betrayal, body image, and being enough. So I'm going to introduce her. If you don't know Vanessa, Vanessa helps individuals and couples heal after betrayal, rebuild trust, and create deeper, more connected relationships. Since 2017, she's guided couples through the most painful relationship challenges with compassion, trauma-informed support rooted in both professional expertise and lived experience. She has a degree in psychology, certifications in betrayal and trauma recovery, and over 2 decades as a C-suite executive. Vanessa offers boutique-style coaching that empowers clients to reconnect with themselves and each other. Her work transforms rupture into resilience so relationships can not only recover, but truly thrive. Vanessa's approach is as distinct as the relationships she helps reset, personalized, powerful, and anchored in hope. Vanessa, thank you so much for joining us. Is there anything else you'd like to add?
You and I have an amazing, we're unicorns, because usually in this space, most, more than 80% who work in this space don't stay together. They're divorced.
Yeah.
And you and I, we stayed.
Yeah.
We still are married to our betrayer because we've done the hard work and we've gone through the trials and tribulations. And that's not to say that every relationship is supposed to stay.
No, yeah.
However, if there's a willingness by both parties and you do the hard work, can it be done? Well, you and I are examples
Here
of
we are, right?
Here we are. We stayed.
Yeah.
And some would say, I know for me, and I know for you as well, that we're better for the experience. I'm a completely different woman than I was before the betrayal. Because I was just living my life on autopilot. And I thought I was addicted to certainty. I thought if I checked off all the right boxes, I'd be inoculated from anything terrible happening. Yeah, oh no. Oh no. Yeah, to say that my world completely shattered and I was completely blindsided, is an understatement.
Yeah.
But, my husband said 3 words to me. I've met someone. And I fell apart. I fell apart.
Yeah.
And I laid on my bedroom floor, not for days, not even for weeks, for months. I was a shell of myself. I couldn't function. And I was so angry at myself that I had a psychology degree. I could fix this. I could fix me. I could fix him. Oh, we'd be all great. It doesn't work like that. And my image of myself, that was bad.
Yeah.
If I wasn't superstitious, I probably would have broken every mirror in my house. But I'll tell you this, they were each covered. I put a pillowcase over all the medicine cabinets had pillowcase. I couldn't look at myself.
Yeah.
I was so full of guilt and shame that I had done something. Even though he did it, I took responsibility on as if there was a shortcoming of me, that I wasn't worthy, that I wasn't enough. And that hit me so hard. And I fell into that cesspool of just blame and shame and guilt. And I really struggled. I really, really struggled because we kept it close to the chest. Most, want to scream it from the mountaintops, and they want to, take a Louisville Slugger to both headlights. But I wanted to save my marriage because my husband wanted to save our marriage. And we went through all sorts of counseling, marriage counselors, marriage therapists, coaches. We kept searching for answers.
Mm.
But the colossal mistake that we made was that we tried to do something together, because that's
Mm.
what you hear. You hear all around you. Oh, go to couples counseling
Mm-hmm.
and couples therapy.
Mm-hmm.
When you can't even look at yourself in the
Mm.
mirror, and he couldn't either. I mean,
Yeah.
he was full of shame and guilt and every other emotion as well. But we were so divided in our own cesspools that coming together for marriage counseling was just, for us, a
Mm.
disaster,
Yeah.
because we each were hurting independently of each other. And all we did was I attacked him and he turtled in. He didn't
Yeah.
say anything. And that caused my rage to be even more intense.
Right.
It wasn't until I searched out help independently of everything else so that I could actually speak to someone who, for in my case, I wanted to speak to somebody, and again, needle in a haystack. I wanted to speak to somebody who'd been through betrayal and stayed.
Mm.
Oh my gosh. And we're talking almost a decade ago.
Right.
There aren't
Yeah.
many
Good
of us
luck. Good
there.
luck.
Oh no. I was looking for a unicorn, and I really struggled with that. And what winded up happening in my particular case was I joined a support group.
Oh,
And
yeah.
that for me was an amazing experience, not on the scope of humans navigating betrayal with 1,400 hurting souls.
Yeah. Oh, I think 14,000.
14,000. Yes,
Yeah.
14,000. Oh, 1,400 seems like a lot. 14,000 hurting
Yeah.
souls. We were 11 of us, 12
Mm.
if you count me. There were 12 of us, and we had the most amazing mentor. We lost her during COVID, a devastating blow,
Mm.
but she's responsible for a lot of the way I am and who I am, because she pulled me aside one day and she said, you know, there's something I need to tell you, which, by the way, is something that my husband said to me before he said the three
Mm.
words. You know, there's something I need to tell you. Um, you're being selfish. What?
Mhm.
You mean I'm being selfish? I'm on speed dial for everyone. I mean, this was before texting was a big thing. So, you know, I was on speed. People would call me all hours of the night because they knew that I was diving deep into the psychology of it and textbooks and anything I could get my hands on, because I
Mm.
wanted to learn about it all from inside and out. I wanted to understand, how could this happen in a marriage where I've been married for 20 plus years, and I knew my husband 10 plus years prior to that. How
Mhm.
how could this happen?
Mm.
And then how could I not see it?
Mhm.
Pull me aside. She said I'm being selfish. Her
Mhm.
throat. You know, she said, wait. You're only helping 11 other people. You have to get out there. You have to write a book. Write a book. My parents don't even know what's going on. You want me to
Mm.
tell the world? Yes, yes, because you're actually really good at this. And I want to sponsor you to get more education. And she did. She was the one
Mm.
that searched out a lot of my certifications because she believed in me and she believed that I needed to get out there. I needed to be
Mm.
able to share my story in such a profound way so that it could help someone else. And I had the honor and distinction of being invited to Oxford University, where I spoke. And I'm glowing because of it. And I was then subsequently on their podcast, Oxford Talks podcast, where I got to share more of my story. Because when you're when you're in front of the camera, you're only 20 minutes, but on a podcast, oh, we had free reign, and it's over an hour. But it was so magical to me, and it just dropped 2 days ago, and it's already got 2,000 views.
Mm.
And I have such a there's pride and sadness in that. in the same time. It's the same coin, but I look at it as, wow, I'm helping 2,000 people not feel so alone.
Mm.
And that fills my elastic heart with such pride. And then I'm filled with such sadness that 2,000 people searching in a variety of ways for an answer to what they're feeling, what's going on within them. And they found this. And based on the comments and the beautiful emails that I'm getting, so heartwarming, so overwhelming, actually. But there's so many souls hurting. And that really hits me very hard. Yeah, I got to get my story out there. And I'm grateful to do so because I want to provide people with hope,
Yeah.
which is
Well,
hold on, pain ends, because it does. Does it completely go away? No, no. Do I get triggers every once in a while? Oh, yeah, absolutely. But now I have the awareness of it. I know what's happening. I know that I'm having a visceral response to it. And I've learned so many techniques to be able to breathe, pause, reflect, respond rather than react. So we're moving into a really difficult season for me, summer, because
mm,
there's a lot of skin. Oh
mhm,
boy, there's a lot of skin. And to tell you that that for me was the biggest hurdle was
mm,
all of the skin
mhm,
around and just the comparing to others and the compare and despair. Oh, it was brutal. And because I would see images on screens and whatnot, not realizing that they're filtered.
mm.
This isn't reality. The screen is not reality. And we
Yeah.
all know that because there are these shows about catfishing, where they see an image on the screen, but then they meet them in person and it's like, whoa, hold on a second. That's not quite, that's not quite what I see. So I
Mm,
needed to almost retrain myself to recognize that what's on screen is not necessarily real.
mm,
Now, that was a good technique for me to be able to do, to remind myself, oh, filter. And now, with the advent of AI making everybody better, you can use it in the reverse, which I find really
mm,
funny is you put in an image that you've discovered, whatever that is, and you say, now make it more realistic.
Interesting.
AI kind of does that for you, and you can have a lot of fun with that. And I that to me is very interesting. But there's a word of caution related to AI, and you and I had this amazing conversation about it because for me, I find it sad. I do. Another area, another realm where I find it sad because all it's doing is pushing what I feel, it's pushing humanity more into isolation.
Mm,
It's
mhm,
enough that when we're out in the world, go to any place. You're standing in line at the coffee shop, you're standing at the library, you're in a restaurant. What's the majority of people doing? You see the top of their head because they're in their phone. They're
mm,
not engaging with the people around them. We've lost that art.
mhm,
The advent of AI and having conversations, and I say conversations very loosely and in quotations, you're pushing yourself further into that isolation, and that isolation leads to loneliness.
mm,
I don't know about you. I don't want to be lonely.
mhm,
Children I adore. I want to see them all the time.
mhm,
Older. I want to see them all the time. And the second I see them, that phone goes away. It could beat and buzz and it feels so good when it buzzes, but no, let's enjoy each other. Let's smile. Let's connect. And we can't do that when we have a battle within us, when we feel like we're not enough.
Mm,
And I
mhm.
feel that AI perpetuates that even further. Yeah, it can be very encouraging to you, but it's still AI and it's still artificial.
Mm,
Let's remember the name of it. Everybody, oh,
mhm.
AI, but it's artificial. It's not real. And
Yeah,
we want to be real. We want to connect with each other because that's when love comes into play.
yeah.
And love and joy, oh, they're the most beautiful feelings to have, especially when we have been living in rage and anger for so long.
Yeah. Well, I love that introduction to, as we're discussing betrayal, body image, our own enoughness, these big responses that we have after discovering a betrayal, right? Fairly universal. And we see this in the data, very common for us to turn on ourselves, for us to especially turn on our body. And we know that these are adaptive responses to help us survive, right? Because we don't want this to happen again. And so our brain looks to, well, what were the circumstances that I contributed to? Or in other words, what are the circumstances I can control? So that starts to actually feel in a backwards sort of way good. Um, that may have contributed, even if we know logically that no, this person made their own choices. It has nothing to do with your body or your enoughness. Our nervous system and our wiring is going to go there, just like you described. I experienced similarly. And for me, and I don't know what your experience was, many women, I think they say it's like 94 to 98% of women by fifth grade are having negative thoughts about their body. And so this is really a systemic issue that's and a systemic betrayal that happens to young girls and women who tend to be a little bit more conscientious to begin with, but then with the way the media and society functions, already have struggles towards their body. And then we come in to a world, especially in the last 30 years, of artificiality, which I love you bringing up, right? Of the images, and then also with AI added to that picture now. Um, so that's a contributing factor. And then to have the person that you put all of your eggs in that basket, you put all of your faith and love and trust to destroy that in a sexual way. And the nature of it matters. Of course, there are many types of betrayal, and all of those betrayal matter. But when we're talking about body image, I often say, even if your partner is not intentionally doing so, non-consensual pornography use and affairs and cheating are a form of body shaming, even if that's not their intention. Even if they say, no, I love your body, I'm attracted to your body, you're so sexual, you're so sexy to me, this has nothing to do with you, this is a totally different part of me. The behavior itself is body shaming to the experience of the betrayed partner, fairly universal. So we're talking about systemic betrayals and messaging from very early on for most girls. And then we add on the artificial world of Hollywood and everything that's going on in that exposure. And then we add this type of severe body shaming, again, even if it's not intentional. I think that we can all say, okay, that actually sounds fairly normal for us to cover our mirrors, right? But we feel like freaks to cover our mirrors or to avoid our images in, the glass of the shopping center, or to catch a glance and then feel deep shame, or to be zoomed in, which is a trauma response, to zoom in really close to my cellulite or my, this part of my body or this part of my body, and this part's not okay, and this part's not okay. But in general, that's just a fairly human thing to do for someone who's gone through betrayal. And so what we're going to be talking about is okay, we can look at the data and say we know this is a struggle. What are my options? How did you guys, because I don't hate my body today. I did a lot of work. It sounds like you've done a lot of work to really come to love your body deeply. We go from maybe hatred or fear around our body or avoidance to neutral, and then into liking and acceptance, and then into really great deep appreciation, love, and care. And how do we do that at any size, at any shape, at any color, at anything? Because it's not about the shape, size, color, cellulite, body part. It's about what's going on inside to us, and then what we can choose to do from there. And that's what you're going to talk about with us today.
Hmm. Beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. Well, in my case, first thing that I did was I chopped off my hair.
Mm.
Yeah, I had the same hairstyle for 20 years. My husband loved it. I had hair similar to yours, all the way
Uh-huh.
down middle of my back, bangs and salt and pepper. and what it was me and
Uh-huh.
whatnot. And oh, that first night, oh, I took it over to the side and took a pair of scissors and chopped it off to my
Uh-huh.
chin. And that
Uh-huh.
was drastic. But why? Because I could control it. And it was
Yeah.
instant. There was an
Yeah.
instant satisfaction to it.
Yeah.
And then, of course, it kept going with all the trickle truths that started coming out. Each trickle truth caused something else for me to do with my hair because I could control it.
Yeah.
That that was powerful, and I needed to feel a sense of control and a sense of power. Also, some might say, kind of did it to get back at him because I knew it was something that he loved, and I was like, yeah, no, no,
Not for
here,
you. It's
yeah.
kind of saying my body belongs to me. I was going to try to find a picture, but I won't. But I also cut my hair off because this was my hair all the time. And then got married. This was my hair. And then after betrayal, cut it all off and bleached it. Faux hawk. I'll send pictures at some point. But I remember when I went and got my hair cut, there was a UPS man sitting next to me. And, it was longer than this. It was long. And she's putting it in a braid and about to cut it. And he goes, wait, 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 wait. And I look at him and I say, what? And he goes, does your husband know you're doing this? And I said, no.
Validation right then and
No. And he
I
goes,
don't need
and he
his
goes,
permission.
you better not do that. And I said, well, why not? And he said, if my wife came home with all her hair chopped off, that'd be the end of the line. She'd get served papers the next day. And I knew my husband wouldn't respond that way. He isn't that type of a person. But it was an interesting moment to have that verbally said right there to me. And the beautician grabbed the braid and chopped it off before I could say anything, which we both had made the decision. It was funny. She and I were like, down with the patriarchy. But it is this feeling of like, this belongs to me. And growing it back out was actually, for me, a part of this belongs to me too, right? And so having these choices of what I want to do, when I want to do it with my body, it doesn't belong to someone else. So I love that you give that example. And I know you've spoken on that
Mhm.
topic before.
Yeah, hair is a trauma response.
Yeah.
I was on a podcast for beauticians.
Yeah,
They
I love
invited me
it.
on, and yeah, to teach those hairstylists, listen, when your client walks in, such as yourself, and says, "Hey, I need you to chop it all off," you need to pause because they're hurting. They're
Mm,
hurting.
mm,
And rather than being all jovial about it, kind of maybe ask a question or two just
mhm.
to let them know that they're being seen and heard.
Yeah.
It's the
Yeah.
most. So for me, how did I go from being completely disgusted with my body, especially my hands? For some reason, my
Interesting.
hands were my focal point because I felt like
Yeah.
my hands aged me, that I was 10 years
Mm,
older because of my hands. And it got to the point where at one point I was wearing gloves all the time.
wow.
Like
Yeah.
these really pretty street gloves, but they were to hide my hands because I could spend an obscene amount of time looking at every single crease and just feeling they're so old.
Yeah.
And all I did was the perpetual cycle of going downhill related to that. Because yes, I picked myself apart, every nuance of it.
Yeah.
What helped for me was actually this being on screen.
Yeah.
I never wanted to do. I was always the one in the team that was on black screen. Always. Never had
Mm,
a camera on, nothing of the sort, because I didn't want to see myself. No, type of thing. Yeah, it was actually getting in front of a camera because
yeah.
now I look back at photographs where I picked myself apart then for a variety, but they're photographs of monumental situations, graduations, things of that.
Hmm.
You can't get rid of those, but they were never really displayed
Yeah.
either. But I had them because I needed them for my children, things of
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
Now I look back at them and I'm like, wow, I was gorgeous.
Hmm.
Wow, look at what I look like. But at the time, because of my mindset, because of that comparison to everyone else, I didn't see myself.
Yeah.
And when you go through the healing process and you really start to see who you are, the beauty inside and out, it's liberating. It truly is. And it starts with just one thing. And for me, it started with my eyes.
Mm-hmm.
Off the pillowcase, off the mirror, look at yourself and look at something on your face that you actually really love.
Yeah.
And for me, it was my eyes. The color of my eyes are green, which is the least popular color. And I would lean in close to the mirror so I wouldn't see everything else. And I would say, wow, I have really beautiful green eyes.
Yeah.
And I did that every morning as an affirmation to myself that there is something about me that is beautiful.
Yeah. So when you did this, and because I've done something similar, um, when I first started saying I need to expose myself to myself because I'm avoidant and also find a way to shift this perception because like you said, your eyeballs literally are seeing a distorted view because of the way that your thoughts are functioning and your trauma is processing. So when you did this though, on the very first time you looked in the mirror and you saw yourself, I'm curious, do you remember your visceral response and do you remember kind of the thoughts that came next when you were like, I'm beautiful or like, I have beautiful eyes? What came next?
Oh, nasty chick jumped in front because I had a wicked inner critic. And she's like, what are you doing? This is silly. Don't do this. Please, let's go back to your hands.
Yeah.
Look at your hands in the mirror. Look how old they are and stuff. Oh, she was relentless on my
Yeah.
shoulder. And she would come front and center. That's why I'm giggling because I remember it so vividly, her
Yeah.
voice, and just no, 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 no. You can't do
We're not doing this. This is a
that. We're
joke.
not
This
doing this.
isn't real. I don't feel better. See, it didn't work, right?
Yeah,
Your very
exactly.
first time.
And
Yeah.
dismiss. But I was convinced because someone else had done it and said, you know what? It actually worked for me.
Yeah.
I really like my nose, and a lot of people don't like my nose, their own nose and stuff. But I had a really cute, perky little nose, and everybody always commented on it. And I thought to myself, wow, yeah, you do have a cute little nose. And I was like, okay, I'm going to try that
I'm going to
and
try it.
explore it because I saw how she was before she did the exercise and how she was after she started doing the exercise. And
Yeah.
I'm not saying it happens in 3 days. Please don't
No.
misunderstand
Yeah.
me.
Yeah.
But over time, yeah, it really starts. The other exercise that I did that really benefited me was I did have a circle around me that didn't know about the betrayal, but I had a circle around me. As you mentioned, I was a C-suite executive. And I reached out to former employees and current employees and said, listen, I'm doing an exercise to better myself. And I want to have a manifesto. I want to have a one-page manifesto that describes me. But it's kind of awkward for me to do it for myself.
Hmm.
Would you mind sharing 3 qualities about me that
Mm.
benefited you, that you admire, you see something? And I would really appreciate it because not for nothing, you know me best.
Hmm.
You know, And the responses that I got back were very heartwarming. But then I started to track it because I'm an analytical person. And I was like, okay, 6 people mentioned this, 4 people mentioned that, 12 people mentioned this. And I started to categorize them. And again, these were their words, not my words. And that exercise felt really good because they saw me. They saw me
Yeah.
in a way that I didn't see myself. And they were very receptive to the exercise
Uh,
because they wanted to tell me how they felt about me. And again, it could be viewed as very self-serving. Yeah, it was. It was
well, it had
self-serving,
to be.
self-soothing.
Yeah.
I needed that. And this was, before the internet and social media became mainstream as it is now. But
Hmm.
those notes, because some people hand wrote a note to me, which was heartwarming. Some people emailed me. Some people told me verbally over the phone, listen, I don't have time to write it out, but I want you to know how I feel. And that was a great exercise. And often when I'm feeling a little bit of doubt, because doubt will kick in, and when does doubt kick in? Usually when I'm tired, when I'm not resting. And again, you have a great thing about sleep in
Mhm.
general. When I'm not sleeping well, when I'm not eating well, when I'm not hydrated, I can revert back into that. Am I enough? Am I?
Mm,
And
mhm.
there are times where I will pull it out and I will look at it, my manifesto of what other people think of me. And then I took the exercise a step further. What do I think of myself?
Yeah.
And I do that exercise every single year on Discovery Day. That's my own
Mm,
internal way of seeing where I was and how
yeah.
far I've come. And
Yeah.
I like that exercise because I'll write it out clean. Just I have my prompt and I write it out. Then I will look at my previous years,
Hmm.
what other people had said prior to that.
Yeah, I love that. I love that.
Some people said things that I was like, really? And I'm like, oh, kind of thing. And what they did was they planted a seed.
Mm.
Somebody wrote that I was fierce. And I'm like, fierce? Fierce. Like I almost had to look it up because I was like, I know what fierce means, but what does Webster Dictionary say about fierce? But what they did was they planted a seed.
Yeah.
And fierce winded up showing up in my own version a couple of years later
Yeah.
without even realizing that they had written that.
Yeah. Well, because now what we do, and there's a whole brain science behind it, I won't get into now, but what we do, what your friend, coworker, colleague did is they planted that seed. And now your brain on unconscious mode is looking for times when you are fierce and saying, "Oh, look, there was a moment. Oh, look, there was a moment." And now it helps you identify. This whole exercise, I think both exercises you've talked about are so powerful. But this one that you're talking about now reminds me what I was talking to a client about a minute ago, just before this, because people who haven't been through an intimate betrayal or a deep relational betrayal, they look on the inside and go, oh, wow, like they must feel so offended, or they must feel so insecure now, or they were rejected. And this is a rejection. And so that crying and that anger and the sadness is about rejection. It's about insecurity. It's about offense, being offended. Because maybe that's how they think when you've never been through it. You kind of think, yeah, I mean, it would hurt your feelings. And then the pain keeps going. And the outside person goes, I love you, but gosh, we're a year out. We're 2 years out. Come on now. Because what they don't understand is that the type of both attachment wounding and the deception, when you're combining those two things, it's identity shattering.
Mhm.
And so part of the body image piece actually is tied into that identity shattering, right? Because our body is a part of who we are. And I don't mean that, oh, you're broken now, your identity is broken. But what I mean is the way that we view ourselves becomes so difficult to see. And we can feel very lost in that piece of it. And we often take on roles that don't even fit. We're like putting on clothes that don't fit or costumes that don't fit just to survive. And so
Mhm.
we can feel really lost in our identity. And so what I love about this example is maybe your friends and family didn't all say, you've got great eyes and beautiful lips and our inner critic could come back and say, they just think I'm a sweet spirit. They didn't say I was beautiful. That can happen.
Mhm.
But what I hear is the deeper message here, and as you persist and you persevere into this type of an exercise, both what others think of you, but probably even more deeply what you're starting to, because at the beginning it's a baby manifesto of like, I don't know who I am. But as you start to
Blank
do that,
page.
I do something similar at New Year's. And as you continue to develop that and strengthen that, in spite of what's happened, take the opportunity to really strengthen and mature your identity. And much of it may come from the you before betrayal. And much of it may be a new version of yourself after the betrayal. And you build on that. And so this exercise, how it's helping your body images, it is that identity. And it's expanding your view of who you are, to understand what you see in a photograph or what you see on the outside is good. And I'm working towards that by looking in the mirror, starting with the easiest body part to love, right? But I'm not a collection of body parts.
Hmm.
I'm not an object to be observed. I'm not an ornament. That's not my job. That's not my role. That's not who I am. I am all of it put together, right? And so I love that you're integrating and inviting those listening today, both addressing the body stuff, the outside stuff, because that matters and it's painful. And we do need to make friends with our body over time, very slowly too. I love how you said start with, your friend was the upturned nose that she liked. Just start with the thing that's already easy. So for me, it's my hair. I like my hair. So it's easy for me to go, yeah, I like this. It looks good, and I can look in the mirror and tell that to myself. So start there, which is called pendulation in trauma work, where we start where our nervous system can just dip its toe into the shallow end and then continue to move forward until I'm looking at my cellulite on my thighs and saying, thank you, legs, for walking me around this earth. Thank you, or even my hormones that I have lots of hormone genetic struggles. And I can say, I see you. I see you trying to do your best. You sure are struggling, you little hormone problem. The
Hmm.
hard parts, the disabled parts, the genuinely difficult parts, but starting in the end that works easy, right? Another tool that, if you don't mind me adding to that body part, is for me, speaking of noses, I have quite a interesting shaped nose, and I was bullied as a tween. I woke up at a sleepover and they were measuring my nose, so that of course adds this, like, you look in the mirror and that's all you see kind of experience as a teenager. And as I was going through this process, I decided to rework that. And I looked around at my family members and I looked and I said, whoa, my grandma has this nose, who I adore and love with all of my heart. My brother, who I adore and love with all my heart, has this nose. My uncle, who I adore, has this nose. And I just thought, when my grandma passes or when my brother lives far away, which he does, he lives in New York actually, and I'm in Arizona, I can look in the mirror and I can see them and I love them. And I don't look at their face and think, what a hideous schnoz. I don't do that to those people that I love. And so that can be, if you struggle with a particular body part, that may be, it may not be, but it may be an exercise you can use to help fall back in love with different parts of who you are and where you come from and tie you to your roots and to your stories. And that's, again, a part of your identity, rather than saying, I don't look like the image or the images of my youth, which was the heroin chic, images. Those were the images that I was bombarded with in the late 90s. And I don't look like anything like that. Not a single part of me looks like that. I'm not represented. And so I can compare every single part and compare and despair. Or I can look at my people and I can say, I look like my people. And for me, that works. For others, that might be painful to look like your people, and you may not use that. You may use something different.
Hmm.
You may look like you, and that's what matters, right?
Absolutely.
So there's many ways, but I love that what you're tying this to is first inner critic, which we're going to keep talking about, and also identity, and how all of this is really connected to reworking the understanding, because what betrayal does is it really overshadows all of that. And that's, again, a human response, but one we get to then choose to, when we're ready and our own pacing, build from. Whether we stay or whether we go, we get to do that work if we choose to do so.
Hmm.
Yeah. So tell us a little more. You did mention your inner critic, that nasty, nasty lady,
Wicked.
or wicked lady. I love that. She's wicked.
Wicked.
We don't hate her, right? She's there for a reason, but certainly she was causing some issues for you. I have one myself, Xena Warrior Princess. And this part of you, this inner critic, let's talk a little bit more while we've got some time about
Mm.
what is that? What does that look like? So people can start thinking a little bit more about this part of them.
Well, she's part of a trio that we
Mm-hmm.
have. Now, it's our intuition, and
Mm-hmm.
it's our gut, and it's our inner critic. So
Mm-hmm.
three. In my particular case, my wicked inner critic, who I affectionately call nasty chick,
Mm-hmm.
pretty much bullied my gut and my intuition.
Yeah.
They rolled over. They were like
Yeah.
too strong for us, and whatnot. For me, she appeared in kindergarten.
Mm.
I remember the exact moment. And I talk about that in my Oxford talk. And from that moment on, I thought she was there to protect me.
Yeah.
But what she was doing was she was keeping me small.
Mm.
She was keeping me quiet. She was keeping me alone because everyone else was a threat.
Yeah.
And yeah, and for quite a while, she hibernated.
Mm.
But when my husband said those three words, oh, she came out guns blazing. Oh, she was
She
relentless.
was like, I'm gonna protect you so hard, you won't even know what happened.
Exactly. Exactly. And I listened to her for far too long. I just did. And one day I had enough. Like I was so emotionally and physically drained. And I screamed at her. I screamed out loud
Yeah.
to, I'm arguing with a ghost,
Yeah.
like she's not even there. And I'm like, enough, enough.
Yeah.
I need a reprieve. I need you to stop talking because it got to the point where it was just on this endless cycle, this
Yeah.
endless loop over and over and over again. I had no breathing room. And that, oh, it was awful. It was absolutely awful.
You wake up with it. You
Oh,
wake
yeah.
up and the track is like, it's like an earworm that's as soon as your eyes open, it's there. I
It,
remember that moment for me. I was hopping into the shower and I just thought, my thought was actually, I'm really bored of this. Like I'm over it. I'm just bored of this. And it was disturbing as well, for sure. Because the thoughts trigger physiological responses. The physiological responses trigger the thoughts, right? But I just went, I'm just over this. I'm just bored of it. We're done. We're done with this, and started to make that shift.
mm,
There's so many different ways to get fed up
mhm,
with that part, that type of survivor, right? It's a type of inner survivor. It's there for a reason. It showed up, like you said, in kindergarten when we all have our moment where it shows up. But then we get to a moment where we're like, I'm done.
right.
I'm done feeling like this and thinking like this about myself.
Yeah. Because she talks to us in a way that we would never allow anyone else to talk to us.
No. Or we
And we,
would never talk to other people
oh, yeah,
like that.
exactly.
Never.
Yeah. But we allow it. And for me, being in the C suite, like, how can I lead other people if I'm being led by my inner critic?
Mm, the
And
self-leadership, right? That's that self-leadership. Yeah.
exactly. And judgment, oh, judgment was, I would rip people to shreds in my mind.
Yeah.
And it wasn't even me, it was her. Oh,
Yeah.
no, 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 and just this constant voice that it was just like a low grade fever. It was just
Mm,
always there that I became comfortable with it until betrayal hit. And then she became really loud and sleep. Sleep didn't exist for me. I mean, I
mm.
got an hour or two of sleep. I was grateful, but just as you said, the second my eyes popped open, there she was. And just all throughout the day.
Yeah.
Everywhere I went, she was just there. So I finally screamed at her. I was just like, enough. I can't do this anymore. Enough. I need a
Yeah.
like, give me 10 minutes
Yeah.
silence, which was golden. And every single day I stretched out that time because I couldn't
Yes.
slay her all at once. In my
No.
particular case, I couldn't do it. I didn't have the willpower
No.
to be able to do it because part of me felt that comfort. It's like that old sweater, that sweater we had in high school that we absolutely love. Absolutely, we looked great in it. It's got so many memories, everything else. And we keep it, even though it doesn't fit us anymore. It's so faded, it's got holes in it, this and that. And now it's itchy,
Mhm.
but we keep it anyway. It's
Mhm.
familiar to us. We want to put ourselves into it because we know what it feels like.
Yeah.
Doesn't have the unknown to us. And she was that way for me. She was just always there. So whenever I felt lonely, oh, here I am. Okay, who can we
Yeah.
pick apart now? With
Is
you.
it
Let's
gonna be me?
go apart.
Okay.
You know, it became familiar. And we thrive on familiarity.
Yeah.
We do. That's why betrayal is so disruptive as well, because it shatters our world. It turns it completely upside down. There's nothing familiar about it at all. And that's why we fall apart and we just do. And it's not because we're broken,
Mm-mm.
but we're hurting,
Yeah.
hurting deeply. And there were a lot of different techniques that I used throughout. The one for me is I actually needed, some people do a pinprick. I had an elastic band
Mm.
on my wrist for my hair before I cut it all off that I would snap.
Yeah.
And that would snap me into the present moment,
Yeah.
because she would drag me into the past. She would resurrect memories that I had long forgotten. Well,
Yeah.
this is reminiscent of that time, blah 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 blah. And it's like, wait a second, that's gone. That was buried. Now you're bringing up that feeling. So for me, my nasty chick in the betrayal brought up every single insecurity I ever had.
Right.
There were a lot,
Right.
because just like you, we had a lot of images. I mean, for me, I had all the magazines, the Vogue,
Mm.
things like that,
Mm-hmm.
and all the models. And you mentioned about being, stick thin. You had that as well, and
Mm-hmm.
it's exhausting. It's truly exhausting. But when you get to the other side, and you absolutely will get to the other side. It's glorious over here. It
Yeah.
truly is. I I love who I am now.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that comes with age, but it definitely comes with wisdom. And wisdom for me is knowledge plus lived through experience.
Yeah.
We've lived through it. We've lived through it. We've gotten through to the other side, and we're still married. Is it hard work? Of course it is. But that's what marriage is. A lot of people seem to think that once you find your person, that's it. The hard work is done.
Happily ever after.
Yeah, absolutely. Disney has completely screwed us over in that regard. But no, the work just begins there. And you go through life and all the transitions. You have 5 children. I have 2 children. I can only imagine the transitions for every single one. Yeah, life is life. And we hope to be able to go through it with a partner. And sometimes that partner is ourselves,
Yeah.
as it should be.
Yeah. Yeah. So
Mm-hmm.
true. Yeah. And I think that the hope for anyone, again, listening today is in that, in that recognition that whatever they choose, whatever your partner chooses, whatever the relationship can weather, which is going to be different for every person. But whatever happens, the betrayed person, the person that the hard thing has happened to, you're going to be okay. You can be okay if you're willing to not go over it and not go around it and not go under it, but to go through it. And that doesn't mean staying. That means going through the emotion, observing yourself, breathing, pausing, reflecting, responding, all those beautiful things that you said. As we give you a few tools today to work with your inner critic during the summer season, you're going to be going to the pool or avoiding the pool. So the pool is my happy place. I live in Arizona. I grew up in Arizona. That is my happy place. And that was a very triggering place after betrayal. And everybody there wasn't magazine thin or perfect looking, but it still felt very triggering and very threatening and very scary. And so I set some boundaries. I went to the pool by myself for several years. Like, I'm not going with my partner because I don't want to deal with my brain wondering what his brain is doing. And I don't want to try to manage him because that's not my job. So I'm just going to go by myself. And then when I was there, guess what? I was still triggered. And so then I managed my triggers. We have lots of tools in our coaching programs and how to do that. There's a way through. And part of it are some of these tools that we gave you today. And so we invite you, whatever you do, to practice some of these little by little. Seek support, real live human being support. Yes, AI can give great information at times, and it can provide a level of validation in the middle of the night that you might not be able to access unless you have an amazing support group, which I recommend getting one that you can text in the middle of the night. I had one myself as well, and that just feels like a safety net. It's so beautiful. But maybe you don't have access to that quite yet. So I'm not saying that we're not saying AI, it's a tool, right? It's not evil, it's a tool. But also, don't forget about humans, those relationships that you described at the beginning. And I had some I could mirror similarly in my life in terms of relationships, mentors, people that walked by me, people that saw me. That is so powerful and deeply resonant to our nervous systems in ways that we just can't get anywhere else other than from regulated, connected humans. We recommend that. But we're so grateful for you guys for coming, for listening. I'm so grateful for you, Vanessa, for all of your wisdom, all of your insights, all of your descriptions. That really integrates well with the work that I do as well. So I'm fully on board with these topics that you've been covering at Oxford. How exciting! And really helping so many people. And I hope today that those of you that are here listening will really take some of our recommendations to heart and just one or two, just put a few things into practice and just take it slow because that's where the real long-term traction is. Anything else you'd like to add before we wrap up today, Vanessa?
A beautiful conversation as it always is. You and I have such great conversations, and I'm glad that we allowed everyone else to be a fly on the wall so that we can have these deep conversations that need to be said. The
Yeah.
words need to come out of your mouth. And it's such a beautiful thing, again, because our inner critic is the voice in our head. And we just, being able to speak out loud and to listen to thoughts from others that have walked the path, who
Yeah.
have done the work and are here to
Yeah.
help you to let you know, hey, we've got you. We've
Yeah.
got you. If you're willing to do the work, there's so many tools. There's so many things. And not for nothing. I know for me, I'm not the be all end all. I'm not. If I say something and you're like, oh no, no, that doesn't feel right. Ooh, that gives me ick. You toss it. It's
Yeah.
absolutely fine. I don't take any offense to it. I'm just sharing the things that worked for me
Yeah.
and also work for my clients in the capacity that we're working together. And the group that we have, Humans Navigating Betrayal, is excellent. But as we commented, there are 14,000 people in there. It is surface level. It truly is. But if you want to dig into what your relationship is with yourself and then your relationship with your partner, that's one-on-one support, or that's a small group support.
Yeah.
I don't want to say you're not going to find that in this group, but it's still on the surface.
Yeah.
It's great for validation, but sometimes we can get too much validation, and we can, especially, and we, all of us here, the moderators and the admins, try to be very, very careful and monitor the posts that generate comments that say leave. you know, that's not the answer. That might not be the answer. You know best.
Yeah.
You truly do. And if you need guidance, you reach out to any of the vetted professionals because unfortunately, and we all know this, when we're hurting, vultures can come out.
Yeah.
And we want to avoid that. And we want to try to protect you as best as possible, especially being a member of Humans Navigating Betrayal. So we count on you to be able to identify things that don't feel right, posts that don't feel right, replies that don't feel right. We want this to be a safe space for you to come in and ask those questions, those hard questions that you feel you can't ask anywhere else. That's what
Yeah.
we're here for.
Absolutely. Absolutely. The humans group, when I started it with a colleague of mine in 2020, so almost going on, I guess, 5.5 years ago, we did so not for it to be the end all be all, and I hope that we communicate that well in our messaging, but that it's a space that people can come and wake up to betrayal because so often we're alone and it's difficult and we're met with tons of pushback. Society doesn't want us to see betrayal for what it is. They want it to be, oh, you're offended and you're going to get over it. Yeah, because that's too much effort for most of society. And so this is a place where we wake up to betrayal. Oh yeah, this is a betrayal after all. I mean, how many of you in this group have read people's stories and went, oh my gosh, I'm not crazy. I'm not the only one having a problem with this because my sister, my cousin, and my friend And the 5 other places I Googled said, I need to just suck it up and get over it. So this is a place to wake up to betrayal and to stay awake. But that's only the second phase of growth when you're working through betrayal and healing all the way to rebirth and healing and all of the things that you're doing, right? So the next phase, those next phases often require mentorship and support. Every good story has a good mentor, right? And so that's where, of course, the mentors in this group, the moderators and administrators are here and available. And like Vanessa saying, reach out. And then we're not trying to gatekeep help. Just like Vanessa said, we don't think we're the end all be all for 14,000 people. No way. And so in our featured section, you can look, and we have lots of websites and links for other vetted, research-based, educated. Not everybody's perfect, so you still have to do your own research and do your own reading on people, but places for you to find support locally or online, because we want you to have that type of mentorship and to make it, continue on that next stage of growth. So I just say an amen to everything that Vanessa said there. And thank you all for being in our group. We love you so much. We think about you. We talk to one another about how can we help this person, or what about this response, and how do you feel like we could support this person? I mean, we really care. We meditate on you. Some of us pray on you. Like, we care about the people in this group. I know it seems vast and, massive, but we do care. And I'm so grateful, Vanessa, for you and your willingness to come share even more with our group today. So thank you
Oh,
so much.
absolutely. And I do want to give a shout out to Kendra. Kendra Last is also one of the admins of the group, and she's a powerhouse. She knows her stuff, and she comes at it from a different direction. And that's what I love, because I've been a moderator of this group for a little over 2 years, and I love the diversity.
Yeah.
We're all so different, but at the same time, all aligned.
Yeah.
And Kendra, she's amazing in and of herself, and her background and experience, and you'll correct me if I'm wrong, is from a narcissistic point of view. So
Yeah.
if narcissism is prevalent in your relationship and you're really struggling with that, she's the one you want to talk to.
Absolutely.
She absolutely is, and she's very much a part of this group. So I want to acknowledge her as well as Steph, who's also in the group. What I love about her is her small support groups that she has locally, that she does bilingually. And I really like that aspect
Yes,
of
I
it,
love
because
that.
it betrayal affects everyone.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter your economic status. It doesn't matter your place in this world. You can still be betrayed, and it still hurts.
Yeah.
And you still need support.
Absolutely. Yes, and we have Michelle who does Kasala and brings her own background and history to healing in such a beautiful way. We have so many. We, go click, see who we have and what they do. But I think also, to speaking to what you were saying, is that we all have a shared mission and we have shared values. And those are explicit, and you can read about those in the featured section as well. The values and the mission that the moderators share, and that we invite you into this group recognizing where our ethics are and what we believe in here, because that's important to us. And then how we go about enacting those, what different modalities we use, what different treatment modalities, what focuses we use, those are all unique. And so that creates just such a wide net to help so many people. So I agree. Thank you so much, Vanessa. So grateful that you're here. Thank you, everyone who's here, either on the podcast, the YouTube channel, or here in the group. We love you so much. And, you're welcome to reach out if you need. Thanks, everybody. Have a good one. Bye-bye.